Welcome to the Gone-Gpn Show with your hosts, Péwé and Traci Clark. Grab your favorite beverage, kick back, put your feet up and have a listen. We're all Jeep all the time. On this episode, we're going to introduce you to the crazy crew of Gone-Gpn, let you know a little of our backgrounds and how we came to be here.
Welcome to Gone-Gpn. That's the GPN show. That's Gone-Gpn, GPN. I'm your host, Péwé.
And I'm your co-host, Tracy Clark. Welcome to our first episode.
On this first episode, we're going to introduce you to the Gone-Gpn crew and tell you how we came to be here. Some of us have been friends and colleagues for a while, and some of them have actually been friends for decades. So it's going to be interesting to see what we come up with.
And some of us are considered the new kids in the industry. We all come from different backgrounds, and there's one common thing that has all brought us here together, and that's our love of Jeep.
And that is true. It's our love of Jeep. So, Tracy, tell us, what is Gone-Gpn?
Well, Gone-Gpn is all Jeep all the time. It's a kind of an eclectic group of us folks that have a passion for everything 9-slot, 7-slot, whether it be overlanding or mudding or rock crawling or just tootling down quiet country dirt roads.
You're right. And that's basically what has brought us all together is our love for Jeeps. So what we need is to actually introduce our crew, and we're going to say hi. And our first one's going to be Stuart Bourdon. Hi, Stu.
How you doing? Good to see everybody.
That's great. And we got Chris Collard out there.
Hey, guys. Awesome. Having a great day. And, glad we're all here.
Yeah, and also Tyler Donaldson.
Hi. Hello.
You're ready to rock and roll. How about Michael Harrington?
How you doing, everybody? Good to be here.
Good to see you, Mike. And, of course, there's Liam Lafferty.
Hey, guys. I'm glad to be here.
And Greg Henderson.
Hi, everybody. Greg Henderson. And, yeah, definitely this is an absolute blast to be a part of Gone-Gpn.
Right. And then, of course, Tracy Clark.
Hi, everyone.
And I'm Péwé for Gone-Gpn. So let's get started. This is our first podcast, so it's going to be really interesting to see how it turns out. One thing I wanted to do was introduce all of you guys because most of our audience already knows a few of us, but not all of us. So I think it's really important for the Gone-Gpn crew to give us an idea of where they came from, how they came to Gone-Gpn, and what they've learned coming to something like this. We're going to start with Greg Henderson. You're kind of an enigma, someone that's been around a while. And I can say, yeah, unofficial use only is what a lot of people know you as, a premier fabricator and vehicle builder. But how'd you get there?
Well, it's kind of a long road, but it was definitely a lot of fun. I've enjoyed my kind of pseudo career in the off-road industry, especially around Jeeps. I was really fortunate when I was a little kid. I grew up around Jeeps. My dad worked for Chrysler. He was friends with all the original Lunatic Fringe members, and they'd come over to the house and I'd get to see all these cool Jeeps. Funny part was I was never allowed in the garage. So I wasn't allowed to touch tools. I wasn't allowed to work on cars. And as I got a little bit older, once I moved out of the house, the very first vehicle that I ever kind of built or restored was a 77 Ford F-350 because I wanted to go mudding. And that's what spurred my love of off-roading. I ended up buying a Jeep as a back and forth car so that I could go back and forth to work, and following guys like Péwé and, all the magazines and everything else. I started to modify the Jeep on my own and had a lot of fun with it. That kind of transformed into, 2006. I started working with AEV and Dave Yegi. helped him on his garage, helped him build a Brute. That turned into, I ended up working for AEV from the beginning of 2007 all the way through 2014. And that really cemented my love for everything Jeep and everything off-road. A couple years later, I started unofficial use only, which is what I'm doing now. Kind of my flagship vehicle for unofficial use only was still, it's a vehicle that was really, in my mind was really cool. But one of the coolest parts of building that first one that everybody saw was 100% me, was I was at SEMA. It was the day before the launch of SEMA, and Rick Péwé came walking into the booth doing a live stream because he had heard all these rumors about this cool rig that was built. And that was Path Killer, which was a JK turned into a Cherokee. And, I've built a lot of vehicles, and I like to really customize them and change them up. I've worked on everything from beautiful old ones that are over my right shoulder to, newer ones. And it's just a big passion of mine. I love it. So 21 years now off-roading, and 15 years almost in the off-road industry. So it's been a good run, and I've had a lot of fun with it. And I don't ever want it to end.
Well, one thing that's interesting is you weren't allowed in the garage. You weren't allowed to work on Jeep. So where'd you get your practical experience? Did you go to school, MIT? What'd you do?
No, none of the above. So I didn't go to school. Well, I did go to school, but not for Jeeps, or not for anything automotive or off-road. But I literally started tinkering in the garage and in the driveway after I bought my first Jeep. So I bought the first Jeep. I had worked on a couple cars, like the Ford, but never done anything big. And at the time, I was actually paying a shop to build up my Jeep. So that Jeep, the suspension got changed 3 times, armor all over it, all the normal stuff that you would see. I kept paying a shop to do it, and they kept messing it up. So when I'd get it home, I'd take everything apart and I'd redo it so that it was a little more meticulous. That just kind of fast forwarded. So I ended up, basically, I just have a natural aptitude, and I learned probably 80% of what I do from watching some of the TV shows and reading the magazines and reading all the tech articles, and then taking that and just kind of, taking the base knowledge that I would learn from those and then tweaking it to make it better, in my opinion. And I'm ended up doing just beautiful builds like this.
Yeah. So now you're on our YouTube channel, because before it was just the magazines. That was about the only outlet there was back in the day.
Right.
So
100%. I mean, I remember being so excited. I got 5 or 6 magazines every month. And when they'd roll in, I was always excited. And then my wife would complain at me because I'd spend too much time in the bathroom, because you had to read them from cover to cover. And now, the outlet is right where we're at. And it's on YouTube, and it's podcasts, and it's social media. And last year, or basically a year ago, when Tracy and you got a hold of me and said, "Hey, do I want to do this with Gone-Gpn?" I mean, absolutely, floored that the people who I looked up to for so many years are now asking me to be a part of it. And it's really exciting. I can never get over the fact that I was just like everybody who might be watching this, and just through perseverance and trying and, never giving up. Now, I'm a relatively well-known Jeep builder, and now I'm a part of a podcast and a YouTube channel, and a social media outlet like Gone-Gpn. So, for everybody out there, never give up. Don't give up on your dreams. If you love something, just keep pushing.
Well, that's why we're happy to have you here with us. That's kind of attitude, that Jeep and attitude that gets in your skin. You want to do more, and you want to tell people about things.
Oh, yeah.
That's the thing I saw in your all your builds there, all thought out, and that's why we can't wait to see some of the other new stuff coming around.
Yeah, well, right now there's nothing big over the top that's coming out, other than something that I knocked out for Quadratech pretty recently. That's gonna people are going to get to see that soon. And fortunately, as soon as Quadratech launches it, Gone-Gpn's going to as well, which is really cool. But a vehicle that I've been known for a while, which is Frankenbrute, on my birthday, which was November 18th, I rolled it. And so we're going tomorrow to the paint shop to start tearing it all apart. And it's going to be Frankenbrute version 3.0. Because when people first saw it, it was kind of anvil gray. And then I did a bright, vibrant blue for SEMA in 2017. And now we're going to completely redo the whole thing. I'm going to go back to the old school look and get rid of the newfangled junk. So if anybody out there is watching, I need a 1949 Willys foot ornament. But it'll be a lot of fun. And, for everybody watching, definitely tune into the YouTube for Gone-Gpn. And I'll be posting content there. And, it's just a blast. It's an absolute blast to be part of such a family like this.
That's cool. All right. Well, that's Greg Henderson at Unofficial Use Only. Now let's go over to Liam Lafferty, the relative newcomer to the group, the youngest member of the group, I think. And thank goodness you're here, because you're the techno-wizard that keeps us all in line with all the social media and everything else. You and Tracy are the ones that actually look at the numbers and figure it all out. What's your background, and how in the world did you get here?
Oh man, that's a great question, Rick. So, like Greg did, I'll kind of start towards the beginning, because it's funny, because I grew up in a family where my stepdad was a big time car guy, and my stepbrother was a big time car guy, and they like muscle cars and stuff like that. I wanted nothing to do with it. I'm an engineer. I knew that since I was in like middle school that I wanted to be an engineer, and so I wanted to play with computers, and my friends and we wanted to be YouTube stars. So we got cheap cameras, whatever we could afford, and we were making videos, and they are just the worst things you've ever seen. I won't tell you how to find them, but you can find them on YouTube.
I think we'd like to do a search.
Yeah. Good luck. If you do find them, you'll see my face a lot younger, and it's a real treat. But that's what we wanted to do. We were into computers, and we were into YouTube and cameras, and really nerding out on that kind of stuff. And then when I saw that, we'd put 17 hours into a special effect and get 3 views, we kind of gave up. And I went, go figure, right? And I went after my dream of being an engineer, and I got my degree in mechanical engineering. But something interesting happened my sophomore year of college, where I met a guy, and he kind of took me into his garage when we'd be studying, and then we'd go into the garage, and he's building trucks and stuff. And suddenly it was really interesting to me to hold a wrench and start turning some bolts. And he convinced me to buy a car that I was more interested in, and that happened to be, and this is perfect, because it really shows how little I knew about the automotive industry. Because I grabbed the Jeep that no one wants. I got a 1994 YJ with the 4-cylinder and an automatic. And that was the Jeep that I bought because it had 2, not 1, but 2 CB antennas, and I thought that looked a little bit cooler than the others. And that was all I knew.
That's old school.
Yep. That was the only thing I knew about Jeeps at the time, was that this one was red and it had 2 CB antennas, and that was pretty cool to me. So that's what I bought. And immediately the alternator went out, a couple of sensors went out, everything broke. And instead of taking it to a shop, because sophomore in college doesn't have any money, my friend encouraged me to learn how to do it myself. And from that day forward, my life has actually completely changed. The Jeep has kind of defined my path from that day forward, because I decided that I didn't want to be a mechanical engineer. I wanted to be a mechanical engineer in the automotive industry. And it took me from Iowa to Detroit, where I live now. I actually do interior components for the Jeep Wrangler. So the 2020, 2021, at this time, all of the current Wranglers, they have interior components that come out of our facility. And so I go from working on the latest Jeep to come home and then immediately start wrenching on my YJ. And about, like 2 years ago now, a little over, I decided to take my previous passion of video and my current passion in Jeeps and combine them. And so I started my YouTube channel, Jeep Sheep TV.
Jeep Sheep.
What was that?
Jeep Sheep, yeah.
Jeep Sheep, yeah. There's a really brief story there. I was driving my Jeep around. I used to do a lot with summer camps. I've always grown up in the church, and I would do church summer camps as a leader. And at one of the camps, they gave me this little stuffed rabbit, I guess. It was just a thing that they gave all the kids. And so I shoved it in my Jeep as a co-pilot in the little glove box area. And I continued on my merry way. I did a lot of traveling for internships and stuff over the summer. Spent a lot of time in the Jeep. And the girl I was dating, who is now my wife, of 3 years, which is crazy, she saw that and, she's like, oh, wow, that's really cool. And I had mentioned that it'd be funnier if it was a sheep because Jeep and sheep sound similar. And that was it. And she showed up one of the times she came to visit me at one of my internships, which was out of state, and with a sheep that she had ironed on the Jeep logo. And so he's been my co-pilot ever since. And he's got the Jeep tan. He's half faded on one side, so he's a true Jeeper. And so I named my channel after him, my weird little mascot, and just working on the YJ. And what's funny is the Jeep that no one likes, the 4-cylinder automatic, happens to be the Jeep that no one makes YouTube videos about. So I kind of found my in into the Jeep world and have had a very small but some success with my videos as a result of it being a unique and underappreciated model. So how I got involved in Gone-Gpn, to wrap it all together is, obviously I was a reader of the JP magazine, so I knew kind of the crowd, and I was a fan. And when I saw David Freiberger, he posted that JP Magazine was no more, and Gone-Gpn was the phoenix from the ashes, if you will. I got on, and being the bold personality that I am, I said, hi, I make YouTube videos. I'm embellishing, because my channel is quite small, about Jeeps, and I would love to be a part of what you do. And once I was able to convince Tracy I wasn't looking for money, I guess you guys let me join on, and I'm so glad, because this has been a great opportunity. The picture behind me, if you're on the YouTube version of it anyway, is a 1973 Jeep Commando with that 304 V8, and Greg, who we just heard from, actually gave it to me to put together, and it's in a million pieces right now in my garage. And that connection would have never happened without Gone-Gpn. I didn't know that he was just an hour north of where I live now, and
right.
It other things too. We've had a couple of adventures already, and there's more in the works. So I'm very excited for you to come.
Well, that's one of the things about the Jeep community. You'll find that, oh, I know this guy who knows this guy, and he's a good friend of that guy, and they have some Jeep parts, and pretty soon you're all talking the same language. You can go over to their house and stay the night, and you just met them. It's all cool because it's all Jeep all the time. So thank you for joining us and helping us through some of those techno-wizardry things.
Do what I can.
Go ahead.
I was just saying I do what I can.
And we appreciate that. And then we think you look at the width and the breadth of the Jeep line, from new Grand Wagoneers all the way back to the pre-prototypes made by Bantam, Ford, and Willys. And you realize that 80 years is a long time, but there's a reason that the brand has stayed alive. And it's people like us on Gone-Gpn that love what we do and what we're looking at. Yeah, see, Greg has the chart right there with most of them on. But that also shows you youngest to oldest. Let's talk at one of our older members, Michael Harrington. Mr. Harrington and I have known each other for quite some time. Tell us how you got here.
Love for Jeeps and love for telling Jeep stories. I didn't actually start out in a Jeep. Back in high school, we used to grab a friend's VW and go hit a trail around the reservoir and I always enjoyed that kind of adventure. Of course, back then it was tied to skipping school to do those adventures. And after getting out of high school, I ended up joining the Marine Corps, looking to be a combat photographer. Actually drove for a colonel for a while, and he let me trade my rifle for a camera, so to speak. And so I started documenting desert warfare. Hop in a truck and head out to the desert and shoot this desert warfare training stuff that was going on out in 29 Palms. Met a buddy there, and he enjoyed a thing called wheeling. And so he introduced me to wheeling, and we took his Jimmy out in the desert and went out to an area that's now called Johnson Valley or Joshua Tree National Monument. Actually, a couple of our finest was out wheeling across the desert. This was a time when there wasn't signage or weren't allowed to go wherever you could point the Jeep and go. And they went nose first down into a mine shaft and broke up their legs and laid down there and suffered, and caught the spare tire on fire to send up a smoke signal. And that's when I got my first off-road assignment from the Marine Corps to shoot a off-road safety video to let the guys know, look before you leave, take plenty of water, tell people where you're going. And so I kind of got started shooting my first off-road video back in '74.
Yeah, started your video career.
Yeah, started my video career, yeah, and with off-road to boot, suited me just fine. I worked for broadcast television. I worked for ad agencies, and eventually started my own business called Big Sky in Santa Monica. And we did a lot of automotive work for marketing companies, what have you. So one client heard from a friend of his that this off-road magazine wanted to do off-road videos to supplement the publication side of it. That was in 1995. And so started shooting off-road videos for publication, and one publication led to a second, to a third, and well, that's how I ended up meeting Rick. Actually, was one of your adventures, 2002, I think.
Yeah,
and
that's an adventure where we actually had a video crew the year before, and they didn't pan out as well as you did. That's for sure. So that was fortunate for us, and you did that for another 10 years with us, I believe.
Well, I started in '95, did the first videos, and then 2018 pretty much said I was done. I didn't do every year between, but most of them. As you know, that company was bought and sold a few times, so there were other people that came along and tried to do it their way. Yeah.
There's
always... my first off-road vehicle was actually not a Jeep, I'm ashamed to say, in this crowd. But it was a vehicle that had a larger payload. And then in '97, I finally bought my first Jeep.
Was it a Scout?
No, it wasn't a Scout. Funny to bring that up.
Okay. So it was something
anyway,
with payload.
Yeah, it was something with the bigger payload. Because I was toting crew around and equipment, what have you. But I finally did buy my first '97 Jeep Wrangler in '97, and have taken it out on many shoots. I use it more as a vehicle to get me to the hard spot, not that I'm going to be the one that goes up the hard spot.
Well, that's one thing I found was really helpful on our Ultimate Adventures for doing our videos. It helps to have someone that actually knows how to drive, knows what Jeeps do, knows what will happen on a trail. So they're already there capturing the moment when a different kind of crew with a different skill set may not be able to be there. And that's the thing about with Liam as well, with his video skills and some of our other members. We know what's going on. So going forward, we're going to, I believe you're going to be capturing quite a bit of good stuff for us.
And that's why I asked if I could join, because I love telling Jeep stories. And once I heard the list of names, including Rick and Tracy and Chris and everyone else, I thought, well, this is a group I'd love to join. do what I like to do, tell Jeep stories.
Well, there's going to be some good ones coming out, and we thank you for coming along, doing all your hard work. You can see in your background there is your recording studio, much as it is.
My edit room, yes.
Your edit room, you are the star of the edit room. So another one that has done a lot of videos comes from us, from the other opposite spectrum, and that would be Tyler Donaldson. Tell us a little bit about you, Tyler.
I'm not sure who to blame for getting me into Jeeps. I think maybe C.W. McCall might be to blame. That's going to date me a little bit, but I can remember as a little kid listening to C.W. McCall's Black Bear Road on 8-track. My mom and dad had an 8-track, and the cover art had an 8-track. Yeah, the cover art for the Black Bear Road album was him sitting up on a mountain meadow with a CJ5 behind him.
Yep, CJ5 and a 4-wheel drive and a Smoky on my tail.
And a Smoky on my tail, yeah. And the Black Bear Road song, I still have it memorized word for word. That's where I think it started. And then in high school, I had a buddy with a CJ7, and we did a lot of deer hunting and just mountain wheeling. I live real close to the mountains and, old fire roads and stuff. And he drove that poor CJ7. Well, he cracked the frame so many times that they finally just fish plated it together and sold it because they couldn't keep it together. But we had so much fun in that Jeep that I vowed someday I'm going to have a Jeep, and it's going to be back then it was the CJs, now it's the Wranglers, but it was going to be the Jeep. And probably in let's see, it would have been 99. I was getting ready to go to college, and 98, I was getting ready to go to college, and I needed a vehicle, and I found a 92 YJ Wrangler, 4-cylinder, standard tranny. And some of you out there in the Jeep community may remember Marlboro Cigarettes used to do a Jeep ride every year, and they had some red Jeeps with a white triangle on the side, Marlboro on the side, and they had everything chrome that you could throw at them was on those Jeeps. And they put a little 3-inch lift on them and put 31 1050s. Well, I ended up buying one of those Jeeps from a gentleman up in northern Utah that had gotten it from a dealership, I guess, that had the contract. And they'd taken the Marlboro letters off of it, but it still had all the chrome, and it only had 15,000 miles on it. And I thought, hey, what could go wrong with a Jeep with only 15,000 miles on it?
It's like a rental.
Yeah, well, worse than a rental. I came to discover that it had been jumped at least a number of times because they had cracked the shackle hangers off the frame, which you really got to work hard to do. So I'm a starving college student, and everything on this Jeep starts to break down, and I just, out of sheer economic necessity, could not afford to pay somebody to fix it. So this was pre-YouTube days. Well, YouTube was in its infancy, and I started, I was a longtime subscriber to JP Magazine, and there were some forums. If any of you remember forums, there were some Jeep forums I used to read, and started making some repairs and modifications to that Jeep. And I mean, everything broke down. The engine crapped out on, well, when I purchased it, I didn't realize the engine had been overheated. About a quart of oil in the 2 hours it took me to drive it home from the gentleman I purchased it from, a quart of oil ended up in the air cleaner.
Oh.
It had a nice new air cleaner when I purchased it. At the time, I didn't know that was a danger sign. I do now.
Yeah, it's not supposed to be in there unless it's a old Jeep like
so
that.
It had a blown motor. Ended up rebuilding a 4-cylinder. Why I did that, I don't know. Ended up rebuilding the 4-cylinder.
We've all been there.
Drove that Jeep back and forth. It was a soft top. Drove it back and forth to college. And it was just miserable. I mean, trying to get that thing up to even 70 miles an hour on the freeway, getting back and forth to school was a joke. And I just kept breaking stuff. Fast forward a few years, and I've had to learn to be able to repair most everything myself based on that Jeep. And in the meantime, became hopelessly addicted to Jeeps. I kind of have a problem with buying old derelict Jeeps and stacking them out in the field. And
Me too.
kind of I think I'm up to 17 now in the fleet, but
good start.
Yeah. A few years ago, I got involved with a YouTube channel making how-to videos, how to repair things on Jeeps. Was with them for about 3 years, and that was a lot of fun. During that time, I got invited to go on the JP Dirt and Drive, which was a trip with about 100 Jeeps, and I went 3 years. 3 out of the 4 years I went on that trip. But the first year, that's how I met Rick and Tracy. And thank God I brought my wife with me, or they probably wouldn't have had anything to do with me. But my wife, my sweet wife, is a very friendly person.
She is a special Jeeper for sure.
She is. I think, and she immediately.
We adore Sarah.
Yeah, she is definitely my better half, and so we kind of, I don't know, we communicated back and forth a little bit over the next year. I went to the next 2 Dirt and Drives, and then of course after the last one, and everything print seemed to go the way of the whole earth.
Yeah.
I'm on Facebook one day, and I see that Tracy has started a Facebook page called Gone-Gpn, and I start seeing what she's doing, and I'm interested because it's all Jeeps, which is pretty much all I'm interested in. And
all Jeep all the time.
All Jeep all the time, yeah.
Yeah, and then there was a late night messenger chat.
Yeah. Well, my idea was I just wanted to give you a little tech write up once in a while on your Facebook page. And Tracy said, "Well, I need a YouTube channel." And she didn't, she knew what YouTube was, but didn't have a ton of experience with YouTube. And so
I know how to watch it. I don't know how to load it and make it, and I can watch it fine.
Yeah.
The inner workings, Greek to me.
Well, she described to me what she wanted to do, and I thought, no pun intended, but I thought the idea had wheels. And so we quickly set up a YouTube channel, got everything set up, had a conference call with Rick, and I kind of explained the way things worked with YouTube and the advantages it poses as far as getting content out there and the permanence of the content and how it can benefit companies in the off-road industry. And she said, "Hey, let's do it." So we did it. And here we are a year later, and we're over our 1,000 subscriber mark. We've got, what are we up to, Liam? 50 videos? 50? A lot.
A lot. And I tell you what, we couldn't have done those over 50 videos or 1,000 subscribers without the help of all of you guys. And that's what this is a great team. That's why, Tyler, thank you for jumping on board.
Yeah.
We also do our Tuesdays, and those are always fun. I've even learned a few things from you. That's saying something for as old as I am.
Well, it's good to hear.
So thanks for coming on board. Yes, that's great. So you have a couple other people here that have been, I've known for quite some time. Probably the longest is going to go to Stuart Bourdon, because we met long before I was working in the magazine business. I still had my 4-wheel drive store in Tempe, Arizona. Remember that, Stu?
Yeah. Seems like we were kids.
We still are.
Yes.
How'd you come to be around this motley crew?
Well, let me work this backwards. So the last 5 years before Gone-Gpn, you and I worked directly together on JP Magazine, and that really cemented for me a love of Jeeps. Now, I had worked on off-road magazines like for instance, when you and I first met, four-wheel and off-road, and then four-wheeler before that, driven a lot of trucks, tested a lot of trucks, tested some Jeeps, that sort of thing. But to me, it was just all they were just all off-road vehicles to me, because that's what I love most, is just exploring off-road. And I still do. And then went on to do some stuff with some boating magazines and RV magazines. And everything I was doing was truck related, but I was still going off-road as much as I could. And then, come around back to working with you again. And we were just doing nothing but Jeeps, which just
so good, isn't it?
It was just great. It was like I, found like my favorite donut or something. It was just, it was incredible.
I'm going to have to use that. That's the quote of the week.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I love all donuts, but there was
I always go for that one.
right there, and that's when I realized. I had, worked and built on all kinds of stuff, starting with a Baja Bug. So, Michael, you're not the only one that started in Volkswagens, because it was cheap and I was a college kid, but I wanted to get out in the desert and explore the desert. So anyway, but once you and I started working on JP, I knew I had to get a Jeep. I had to start and really get deep into it. And here we are. And this is the greatest thing. I mean, it's just a group of people that have the same passion about a vehicle that has history and such an incredible heritage and diversity too. I mean, there's, everything from a pickup to a station wagon to, an old World War II vintage vehicle. Yeah. And then, at one time when I was working on four-wheel and off-road, I drove a TJ, which is what I have behind me. Yeah. And so I always thought of that as the last of the little Jeeps. And so I always wanted one, and I've got one now, and I'm very happy with it. So
that's great. We're going to have all sorts of some video bolt-ons on that one too, and some trips, because I know that you love going to Mexico and Death Valley and everything else. So those are going to be some cool things we come up with. Yeah,
we got a lot of stuff we can do, a lot of fun things. I love going on trail rides. I love exploring the desert and the mountains. So there are tons of things we can do here.
Well, we'll look forward to it. And thank you again for joining and for working with me all through the years.
Yeah, well, thanks for bringing me along. It was nice. It's a nice group to get together with.
It is. And that's talking about Chris, someone that I've known for a while. Chris has had a few varied careers in his past, but he's always been a Jeeper and has gone around various interesting places in the world. And looks like maybe he's going to stay around this part with us. How did you get here, Chris?
Hey, Rick. I'm hoping to. This is a fun group of people. It's interesting. My first off-road vehicle was you remember the old Honda 50 mini bikes? Yeah. And my dad was a desert dog. He raced the first couple of Barstow to Vegas races in 67, 68 on a Grease 250. And we spent a lot of time, camping out in the desert, Mojave, Baja. And ride motorcycles. And that just kind of transitioned. I got through my high school years of V8 Vegas and Dodge Challengers and survived those cars somehow. I don't know how. And then, but I always wanted to kind of do more. And, the off-road thing was out there. And I like Stu and I think Mike, my first off-road vehicle was a Baja Bug. And they were, yeah.
Cheap and light.
Yeah, and I still like bugs. I mean, that was super fun car to have. But you mentioned I've had several careers. Yeah, I was a UPS driver for a long time, longer than I would wish to admit. Until I finally, but I always had this, this dream that, I kind of come to you guys from the media side, from the journalism side. But I think Rick, you and I met around 2001, I think, in Moab. And I'm like, oh, man, that's Rick Péwé. I think and Ned introduced us. Yeah.
Right.
But back in this, when I was a UPS driver, I was actually a UPS driver in Georgetown, California. And yeah, right. Jeep Jamboree USA and Jeepers Jamboree, they were some of my delivery stops. And of course, I was like pretty jazzed on the 4-wheel drive side of things. Ended up, started working with Jeep Jamboree USA, just doing with Mark and flying around the country I was like their staff event guy that would come out from the office with Mark or Merlin. And then, I caught wind of, everybody knew about Expedition de las Americas, which was the trip across the Americas they did back in 78 and 79, and caught wind that they were planning to do a 20th anniversary trip in South America with, I think you'd see it, 3 of those Jeeps, like the one behind me. And I somehow fandangled my way into getting a seat on that trip. So it was pretty awesome. And then, I was kind of working my way. I finally had the guts. Actually, I was on a plane with Mark flying back east, and I was still with UPS, and I was, moonlighting, doing this on the weekends and whenever I could with JJ USA. And, he asked me, he's like, what do you want to do? We started talking about my desires to be a journalist and a photographer. And he basically looked at me. He had upgraded me into first class with him. And he looks at me, he's like, what the hell are you waiting for, Chris? And I looked at him, I'm like, I don't know. He goes, well, life's too damn short. And about a year later, within a year, I'd set myself up to actually quit and kind of chase this dream. So yeah, it's been a good ride. It's been a really good ride.
Absolutely. You've gone to some of the far out reaches of the world, and I've done a few of those too. And that's kind of spirit. And that's not your only Jeep there behind you. You also have a flatty. So you're a well-rounded kind of Jeeper.
Well, yeah, and we'll probably get into the whole story on this Jeep behind me. That's actually not the one that I own. That's the one I was driving in South America. It's owned by Brian Franzia, whose uncle was on the original trip.
That's cool.
But
we could do an entire podcast just on that trip alone.
Well, and we'll have to. We'll need to do a walk around and it's a new addition to my shop. So.
Well, and it's like long range trips. Chris and I 4-wheeled across the entire country of Australia last year. Or was that 2 years ago now?
The entire continent, and that was in 2019.
2019. Yep, that's right. And of course, it was a Jeep Retrace the Jeep trip, which we will have to have an entire podcast on that one as well, because Tracy was there as virtual support, tracking us through the eye in the sky, telling us all sorts of stuff.
Yes, it really messed with my sleep schedule.
That was awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Chris, thank you for joining us. I think you found a good little home here. Remember, we're all Jeep all the time. No bugs.
Super glad to be here.
Yeah.
You reached out and said, "Hey, this is what we're doing." When everything kind of went different directions at the beginning of last year, I was like, "Absolutely, that sounds like fun."
Well, thanks again. Appreciate you being here. And then we have Tracy. Tracy's probably the instigator of this entire Gone-Gpn site, YouTube, podcast, everything else. In fact, it was her idea, and she's the leader and holds the flag that we follow. So tell us how you got here.
Well, Gone-Gpn is definitely my brainchild, and it stemmed from a lot of sleepless nights after the demise of JP Magazine. So I kind of did the flip-flop thing for weeks on end without sleep, and it's like, Gone-Gpn. Got to do it. A little bit about me. I grew up wheeling in the mountains of Colorado with my stepfather in a 67 Bronco half cab, and also my uncle in a 1947 CJ2A. My stepdad graduated from the 67 half cab to a 74 Bronco. I have been over trails in Colorado that are now just hiking trails.
Yeah, they're too hazardous to drive on.
They're too hazardous to drive on. My stepfather was definitely the reason that I am not a fan of ledge roads. I started out kind of as a muscle car girl. I had a 68 convertible GTO when I graduated high school that, you couldn't leave it alone. Had to drop a 455 big block in it and a 4-speed, get rid of that slush pump. I wanted to go fast and I wanted to bang gears. And the same held true as I got into lifted vehicles. 73 Chevy 1-ton, 454 and a 4-speed. 83 Chevy half-ton. It had the 305 in it. And 373 gears. No, need more power. Take 454 out of 73 Chevy, drop in half-ton. Okay, that works okay. Need more power. Grab 67 Corvette, 427, rebuild it, bump it up to about 600 horsepower, drop it in. It'll pass everything but a gas station.
Yeah.
I've wheeled everything from a lifted Chevy half-ton with 26 inches of spring lift and 48-inch DOT Firestones that I have taken elk hunting, believe it or not, to full-size Chevy Suburbans, to Jeeps. I actually, Rick may not remember it or not, but when I started working for Scottsdale Fire Department, I'm a former firefighter for 22 years, I had a CJ5 and Rick had Republic. I lived in Arizona and I would swing in there and grab parts. So, whether he remembers.
You're a former customer of mine.
I'm a former customer. So
you're that 30 years later, yeah.
Mm-hmm. How I came to be here, I'd run into Rick occasionally at Easter Jeep Safari, and a former editor for JP, Pete Trasborg, he and I became really good friends, and he was dealing with a lot of demons, and I would be the person that would actually sit there and listen to him, regardless of what time of day or night he needed somebody to talk to. And then he finally said, well, I think you would be a good freelancer, because photography was always a hobby of mine, not necessarily a passion, but a hobby. Like I said, I've been in and out of the off-road scene for many, many years. Even found myself in 29 Palms 10 years after Mike was there, working for an off-road and tire shop for a little while. And, using off-road vehicles and wildland firefighting. But back to Pete, he's like, I think you'd make a good freelancer. And I'm like, okay, fine. What do I need to do? And he's like, well, I'd like you to go shoot a feature on this particular vehicle. Mm-hmm. So I did. And unfortunately, before everything came together, Pete unfortunately passed away. And a few weeks after that, I get a phone call from Rick, and he's like, I understand that you guys were pretty good friends, and I have some questions, and one thing led to another, and we started talking about the fact that, hey, we've known each other and blah blah blah, and got into the feature, and he's like, well, send it to Stu. So I sent it to Stu, and we waited a few weeks, and Rick called me. He's like, do you ever hear from Stu? And I'm like, no. He's like, well, send it to me. So I sent it to him. About 30 minutes. Yeah, about 30 minutes later, I get an email from Stu. By the way. So my first feature for JP Magazine made the cover. 5 years and 14 covers later, here we are.
Stu as well, and you came So that we remember that because at the time, I mean, I was prior on 4-wheel and off-road, and then when I went JP, I had Pete, and then thank goodness I had Stu as well, and you came on as a freelancer, and you did quite a few covers during that time in the magazine days.
Yeah, and we've done a lot of stuff together. I mean, I was on all of the Dirt and Drives.
Yep, you help organize those. Yeah. It was like Stu and you and me just kind of had the little Dirt and Drive.
Yeah, we were the Three Musketeers, literally.
That's right.
Tracy is an amazing cat herder.
There you go.
After watching everything she did behind the scenes to make those trips happen, wow.
There's a lot more to it than meets the eye. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank goodness that you had this idea. I figured I was going to retire and go out and drive Jeeps. Then you said something about, well, yeah, but you can go Gone-Gpn. Well, that's what I'd be doing, right? Isn't that what it means? Except it's GPN, which is really interesting how the GPN came about, because what most people don't realize is when World War II was just getting, well, before the U.S. was involved, the Jeep came about by 3 companies that built prototypes: Bantam, Ford, and Willys. Now, we all know that Willys eventually won the contract, came about. But the Ford was a GP. G stood for government, and P stood for 80 wheelbase. So when the Bantam came out, they called it the Bantam. Ford came out, it was called a GP. Okay. Willys came out, it was called a Willys. Well, somehow that GP kind of stuck around. And when Willys had to let Ford join production, they called it a GPW, which is general purpose, it's government 80-inch wheelbase Willys design. And that's what I have right behind here. So GPN is just like GPW, but it just sounds a lot better. And we're Jeeping.
And we also don't step on anybody's toes and make anybody mad.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. That's right. And we're kind of 7-slot grill aficionados, but that's my 9-slot. That was the original. I've got a 10. I've got a little bit of everything. So, but yes, thanks for coming up with that name, Tracy. That was really good.
You bet. Future podcasts. I mean, we've got some great stuff lined out for everybody. We're going to have some pretty cool segments. All Jeep All the Time is going to be, Rick's segment. He's going to be taking care of some of the questions that come across his mind in the middle of the night, and he's going to pose these strange things.
There's be some scary stuff.
Yeah.
Sort of like Greg over there. And I think he was in some cave. Well, I've Jeeped in some caves before. And there's some good stuff. Yeah, we have a whole bunch of ideas on what to have the podcast on. And in that section, hopefully we're going to have some of you listeners, readers, viewers, whatever you guys want to call yourself, and girls, send us your information that you want to know. If you want to know something about X or anything about Jeep, let us know. And of course, you can find us Gone-Gpn.com.
Exactly. And, like our lockers before light bars, that's going to be our fan Q&A. We're going to have the Jeep Beat, which is going to be anything new and cool and hot Jeep topics, what's down the pike. Here's one that I'm really looking forward to. Willys versus Wrangler. We are going to have Rick Péwé face off with the new guys, old school versus the new technology. This is really awesome. We're going to have our our toolbox talk. Somebody say scout so I can drink.
Scout. Is that a scout back there?
We're going to have our toolbox talk, which is going to be tech tips and things like that. Trail side, favorite trails and trail reports and some of the favorite trips that we've done in the past or things that we're looking forward to doing in the future. We're going to have some other special episodes. We're going to have special guests and like a Willys Roundtable and the trip that you and Chris took across Australia in Jeeps and things like that, and some product reviews and all kinds.
I just thought about another idea. The trip that I went across Africa in a World War II Jeep. I can have the guys that I went with. They can talk all about that. Not many people know about those.
Yeah, that would be awesome. And I want to hear more. And I know a fair amount because, we've spent time around each other. But I want to know about your trip from Arizona to Nova Scotia and Arizona to Fairbanks.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, when I drove stock World War II Jeep to Fairbanks, Alaska with David Freiberger. And then my other one, I drove all the way to Nova Scotia and back from Arizona. Mm-hmm. Good, long Jeep trips. A lot of stories there.
Yeah.
Not a lot of video, but we'll get over that.
Yeah. So you guys probably want to know, how do you submit your comments, questions, and suggestions? You can always send us a direct message on our Facebook page or our Instagram page. You can drop a comment on one of our YouTube videos, and we check those regularly. You can visit our website at gone-gpn.com, or the easiest thing to do is send us an email at contact@gone-gpn.com.
Right. And make sure that you subscribe. We love that. And share. We love that too. And likes are nice, as you know. Go to our YouTube channel and check it out. I think you're going to find there's some really interesting stuff there.
Yeah, and click the follow button on our Instagram page, and there's lots of fun stuff that we have in store for you guys. Hopefully this year we're going to get to some events, and maybe we'll take some live Q&A, do a Facebook Live or an Instagram Live, or
that'd be a great
our
idea.
faithful fans and followers on our podcast out at some of these events.
Yeah. What about sharing vintage photos?
Absolutely. Send
them in. Yeah.
And not just vintage photos. If you've got some cool photos, or got a sweet looking Jeep sitting out there on the beach with waves rolling in and sun setting, send them in. We want to see them.
Except I'm that immediately thinking waves rolling over the Jeep.
I was thinking don't send any driveway photos, and then I noticed that all of our backgrounds have Jeeps in parking lots.
That was one of the rules of Jeep shots. Which
no driveway.
Don't send a driveway photo.
Yeah, at least Liam's is in the garage. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey,
that's because it snows where he lives.
In my defense, mine was taken at the end of the final JP Dirt and Drive.
That's right.
Yep. I remember that. That's where we ate dinner.
Yep. Good times, guys. Thanks for joining us here. And thank all of you listeners, readers, viewers.
We appreciate it.
Time. You bet. Yeah. We're on a 2-week schedule for these dropping, and hopefully you're going to enjoy them. You're going to tell us about it and go to the next one. Thanks again. I'm Rick Péwé. Bye.
We're Gone-Gpn. On the next episode of the Gone-Gpn Show, we'll have lockers before light bars, where we will answer some of our fans' questions. Willys versus Wrangler. Rick Péwé faces off against the new guys, old school versus modern technology. And Trailside, where we will discuss some of our favorite trails and trips we'd like to take. Thanks for joining us on the Gone-Gpn Show. We'll see you at the next episode. We're all Jeep all the time.